All right, so this week alone, I've had two comments. They were kind of the same, but the gist of the comments was, you know what, Michelle? It's so much easier just to fire them. Yes, I get it. It's easier to fire them, to let them go if they're not performing or getting the results that you want. However, here's the thing. Is it really easier? So first of all, leaders, we don't necessarily do easy. We do right. Okay? Sometimes right is not easy. And is it really easy? So for example, let's say you have somebody who you put into a corrective action plan and they're just not getting it, right? Gosh, it'd be so much easier just to fire them. But on the backside of that, now you got to replace them. Recruitment, training, right? Getting that person up to snuff. And then there's well, what if they're not up to snuff? And I just repeat this over and over again. So in reality, is it easier just to let somebody go? I think it's easier to say, how can I empower you? Okay? That's a different kind of a leadership philosophy. So in our Empowered Leaders program, our membership group, we talk about leadership principles, and it's a group of people who gather together who are really about supporting each other, learning, wanting to do the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing, okay? So one of my people asked me this week, Michelle, what are some tips on how to empower others? Gosh, well, first of all, let me just say that could probably be a 2-day training right there, okay? And we cover many of those philosophies and principles and strategies, really, within the Empowered Leaders membership group. But in order to answer that question, I kind of was thinking through, okay, what are the things that I know? And I remember several years ago, I actually was at an event. I was John Maxwell, many of you might know him. He and I are business partners, as well as he's my friend and mentor. And I was at an event and he was speaking. And somebody asked him this question, and he talked about the 5 tips that he kind of uses when he's mentoring somebody. So I thought, I'm going to share those with you. So I went through, I've got all these notebooks and things. So I went through all my notebooks, found that teaching for you, and I want to share it with you, okay? So get your paper and pen out because you're going to want to write this down. So if you need to, pause the video and come back, okay? All right, so I'm going to tell you what the 5 are, and then I'll explain them. So the first one is model. Okay, model is in like show an example. Mentor, monitor, motivate, multiply. Model, mentor, monitor, motivate, multiply. Okay, so mentor is literally just that. You're showing them an example of what to do. I think back to when I was trying to train one of my teachers to become kind of an assistant director who was going to help me with scheduling and invoicing and billing and things like that. So what I first did was brought her in, on a day that she wasn't supposed to be in the classroom. I said, come on in, I want to show you the whole process, right? So as I'm doing it, she's watching the whole thing. So I'm modeling for her. So there's a couple things you need to think about when you're modeling. First of all, give them an opportunity to see you do it, okay? You have to give them an opportunity. Many people, they forget the modeling part and they jump straight to the mentoring part. They need to see you in action. So if they cannot see you, so for example, if you're trying to train somebody up to replace you and one of your tasks is to attend a board meeting and they don't go with you to the board meeting at some point, you're missing an opportunity, okay? So they've got to see you. Another thing is that they need to, have an opportunity to ask questions as you go through. Now, that is very closely aligned with number 2, which is this mentor process. So mentoring is kind of a teaching and telling moment, but it's really for you to give them the why behind something. Okay, so not only showing them the technical pieces of what you're doing, but why are you doing it that way? And why are you doing it that way compared to another way? Okay. I remember when I was going through teaching this girl about how to do my systems and processes, she was like, "Well, why do you do it this way?" Oh, yes, because I tried it this way and this way and this way and none of them worked. So this is what we do. And then the next thing came, "Hey, as you're doing this, if you find a different way that works better, let me know." Right? So it's an opportunity to learn with each other. So you've got your model and your mentor. So the next one is monitor. So this is really where you shift into them doing the work. So, I sat with this girl, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So once a week for 5 times. And eventually, she was doing a lot of it. So she would take the easier parts while I was working on something else. I would monitor her. So she would come back. She'd say, "Okay, is this how that works?" And I might notice 1 or 2 tweaks, right? So when she was doing the schedule, I would say, "Oh, did you check who's on vacation this week? Oh, shoot, I forgot that. Okay, check that out," right? There were a couple times when she thought everything was good, but she had charged somebody too much. And I was like, does that number make sense? You're right. I need to check that. Okay. So for the most part, what you want to do is you want to transition to them doing everything. Now, this is called delegation. All right. But we do it with intention. And the rule for delegation is if they can do something 80% as well as you can, let them do it. Notice, not 100% as well. So if I waited to give her that scheduling piece until she figured out the whole vacation part, guess what? I'm going to be waiting a while. Okay? But when I monitor her, I can make sure the job is done 100% well, but she's doing 80% and I'm doing 20%. Does that make sense? Okay, so don't wait for them to be perfect before you start to delegate. You're empowering, okay? Now, number 4 is motivating. So this is the part not only when you're starting to monitor, you want to encourage and support them, but as they're doing this work more independently, when they come to you. So there was a time after, I say 3-4 months, when this girl, she was doing all my scheduling, all my billing, all my invoicing, everything. First of all, that's magic right there, because guess what? I now have a whole day out of the week that I can work on things like, hey, supporting and encouraging my other staff. Okay? So again, another reason why you want to be delegating things, because now you have more time that you can put towards other efforts. So she was doing all of that. She was doing it 100% very well. And, once every 2 weeks we would come together and I'd say, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on? What are you learning? Have you changed anything?" And we just have a discussion about how things are going. Sometimes she'd come through and she'd say, "Oh man, I learned this." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I had to go through that too." Right. And so I'd encourage her. And sometimes she'd say, "Hey, I was really thinking, what if we did X, Y, and Z on this process? Do you think that would work?" I'd be like, "Well, try it and see." Right. So my shift went from making sure she was doing it right to encouraging and supporting her to figuring it out. Okay? Now, where the rubber really meets the road for a great leader is not just when they get to do the work and not just when they're doing the work really well and you're making those small shifts, but the real magic happens in the 5th step, multiply, where, it came to a point where she had been doing this so successfully for so many weeks that I was like, okay, which parts of these do you like and which parts do you not like? There was 1 or 2 things that she really didn't like. And I was like, okay, what can we do about that? So we found somebody else on our team that had this idea of, ultimately I think I'd like to be moving out of the classroom. And we said, "Hey, we know you're really good at this piece of it. Would you like to help us?" Now, it was like after hours and that kind of thing, but she came in and she helped with just that one piece. She loved it. It was a huge value add to her because she's like, "Oh my gosh, I get to do this and I get to see how you guys are doing this. This is awesome." Now, it was a huge value add to, my assistant because quite frankly, she didn't want to do that, right? But now my job went from mentoring my assistant to mentoring my assistant on how to empower the new girl. That's a whole other skill set, okay? But when you can multiply not just yourself in delegating to somebody, but get them to work themselves out of a job, basically, now my assistant, guess what? She had another hour that I would say, what else can I give you for an hour? Okay? So you see what I'm saying? Over time, what you're trying to do is work yourself out of a job, work your assistant out of the job, work the next person out of the job. So eventually your team is so cohesive that getting rid of somebody doesn't enter your realm of possibility, because you've just put so much time and effort into this person. Why in the world would you get rid of them? And when you treat people like this and you empower them, guess what? They don't want to leave, and they want to be engaged in what's happening. Listen, you don't have to believe me. I just know from personal experience and from working with hundreds of coaching clients who have really tried to put these practices into practice that this works. Okay? I hope this is helpful to you. If you want to know more about things like this, please consider joining our Empowered Leaders membership group. I know I talk about it a lot. Honestly, give me a couple days and you won't hear about it for a while. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is that by the end of September, we're actually going to close the doors on that membership group. So we're not going to open them again until probably January, because I need some time to really focus on who's in the group and making sure that I'm supporting and encouraging them, just like I shared with you. And instead of using my time to recruit people to get into the group, at the end of September, we're just going to close the doors. And then I'm going to work on supporting people in the group. So until then, I'm kind of giving some bonuses for people to sign up, like, come on, get in the door, that kind of thing. So if you sign up by midnight on July 31st, okay? If you sign up by midnight on July 31st, you're going to get some special bonuses. One of them is a free DISC report. So it's going to be a communication report. How do you communicate? How do you prefer to communicate? How can you communicate with people who have a different style than you? It's going to also include a free half hour of coaching with me to talk about that report and how can you create an improvement plan. And then it's going to include a free ebook for you. So tips on how to communicate, how to collaborate, and how to deal with conflict. So if you want to be a part of that group, I would highly recommend that you do that within the next couple of days so you get those bonuses, okay? Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And with that, I release you into the wild. Go forth and prosper. Have an amazing day. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.